Alright, so we're going to work on lesson 80 today. Before you start, we want to make sure that you have read page 509 through 511 in your math book. Also, you can pause and rewind this video if you need to, if I'm going too fast. And I encourage you to write down the work that we're doing so you have examples to help you during the written practice. So the first question on page 511, question A, says, list the 4 steps of division and draw the division diagram. So we've done this, I believe, in a previous lesson, but we're going to go ahead and do it again. It's just for review, so we make sure we remember our steps. We're going to write remember there's 4 steps, so we've got step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4. There's 4 steps. I remember those from before. We'll add some colons here. Alright. Now step 1 is divide. We start by dividing. And then step 2 is multiply. Step 3 is subtract. And then finally, step 5 is bring down. And you repeat these if the division problem is more than a couple digits. And we will draw our diagram over here with these examples here for us. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'll remove those because I want to remove that mark I just made because I want to use arrows. So we're going to start by drawing a little arrows over here so you can see how these steps line up with the little picture we make. And we're going to start with some circles. We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 circles. And inside of our circles for the first one we put divide. And in the second one we put multiply. And in the third one we put subtract. And then in our last one we do bring down. Alright? And then if you remember, we had the arrow that went from the bottom all the way back up to the top. So we can remember, and then we go through each of these steps with an arrow. So that was part A. You want to use this to help you go through the steps. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this so we can use it on our next problems. Right. So moving on to question B. So let's start by putting our little plan that we made over here. I got a cord in the way. Give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. Alright, so we're going to click on the type button. We're going to put our little key over here that we just made. There it is. And we will use that to help us go through this problem. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is we want to divide. Well, 4 will divide into 8 2 times. The next step is multiply. So 2 times 4 is 8. Then our next step is to subtract. 8 minus 8 is 0. Then we got to bring down. So we're going to bring down this 1 here. Now, will 4 go into 1? I don't think so. 4 times 0 is 0, and 4 times 1 is 1, or 4, excuse me. So that won't work. So the biggest number we can multiply 4 by to go into 1 is 0. So we're going to start by dividing by 0. 0 times 4, that's our second step, multiplying, is 0. Then we're going to subtract, that's our third step. 1 minus 0 is 1. And then we need to bring down this 5. And then we're going to divide again. We're going to want to back up to the top. So 4 goes into 15. Well, 4 times 4 is 16. That's too big. So I'm going to go with 3. So we divided by 3. And then we multiply. 3 times 4 is 12. Then we subtract. 15 minus 12 is 3. And there's no more numbers to bring down here. We don't have any other numbers here to bring down. So we are going to check to make sure this number is less than our divisor. And it is, so that's going to be our remainder. And we circle our answer. All right, so let's move on to the problem C. We'll start by putting our little key over here so you can remember. There's our key. And we're going to start by dividing 4. Will 5 go into 4? No. So we would have a 0 there, but we don't need to put zeros in front of our numbers. We just know they're there. And then we go ahead and do 41. Well, 5 times 8 is 40. That's pretty close. 5 times 9 is 45, and that's too big. So we're going to go with 8. And we're going to line it up right here over the number we're dividing by right now. So we're not dividing by 4, we're dividing by 41. So we're going to line up the 8 with the ones place in that 41. Okay, so 8 times 5 is 40. That's our second step. Our third step is to subtract. We're left with 1. 41 minus 40 is 1. And then our fourth step is to bring down. So it's 15. Well, 5 goes into 15 3 times. So that's the division part. 3 times 5, the second step, is 15. Subtracting is our third step. 15 minus 15 is 0. And then our fourth step is to bring down. We have a 2. Now, will 5 go into 2? No, it's too small. So we're going to multiply 5 times something to get less than 2. The only way we're going to do that is with a 0. So 0 times 5 is 0. That's our second step. 2 minus 0 is 2. That's our third step. And then it says bring down. Well, we don't have any more numbers to bring down. And this 2 is smaller than my divisor, so that's going to be my remainder. Remainder 2. 830 remainder of 2 is our answer for C. D, let's go ahead and start with our little key. And then we will check to see. Well, 6 go into 5. No. So we'd have an invisible 0 there. We don't have to worry about that. We're going to go to 54. 6 times what is 54? Well, that's an easy one. 9. 9 times 6 is 54. So the first step is to divide 54 by 6. We did that. Second step is multiply. 9 times 6 is 54. Then we subtract. 54 minus 54 is 0. That's our third step. Subtracting. And then our fourth step is to bring down the 3. Well, 6 go into 3. Well, 0 times 6 is 0, and 6 times 1 is 6. It's too big, so we're going to go with 0 again here. Notice that our theme today is zeros in our answer. 0 times 6, that's our second step, would be 0. 3 minus 0 is 3. That's our third step, and then our fourth step is to bring down again. We've got a 2. Well, 6 times what is 32? Well, 6 times 5 is 30. That's less than 32. And then we've got 6 times 6 is 36. That's too big. So we're going to go with 5. So 32 divided by 6 is 5. That's step 1. 5 times 6 is 30. That's step 2. Subtracting 32 from 32 is our third step, and that's 2. And then bring down. Well, there's nothing else to bring down, so we're going to check to make sure this number is less than our divisor here. And it is, so that's going to be our remainder. 905 remainder 2. Okay, let's go ahead and go to E. So E, I messed up on that last one. Let me go back and look at D real quick. So it says here, divide by using a calculator and show your answer as a decimal number. So this isn't going to work. So I'm going to back up here a little bit, and I'm going to show you how to do this. Now you can pump this into a calculator. That would be fine. I went back too far. But there's a trick to do this by hand too. You just put a little decimal there and a little decimal there. Oops. Because there are, I don't know why that keeps happening. Okay, I'll push harder. There we go. But you can just drag this roof over and you can add as many zeros here as you want because it doesn't change the number. As long as you put that decimal there and put that decimal there, well, we can bring down another number. It's a 0. So we just use this step over here. We go back up to the top. We say 6 goes into 20 how many times? Well, 6 times 3 is 18 and 6 times 4 is 24, which is too big. So we're going to go with 3. We put a 3 there. 3 times 6 is 18. And we subtract. That's our third step. And we end up with 2. And then we can bring down again. Do you notice something's happening here? Do you notice that this 20 was from when we brought down the 0, and then this 20 is when we brought down the 0? I'm thinking we may end up with an endless 3, but let's try it. 3 times 6 is 18. We subtract, we end up with 2. And we bring, if we threw another 0 there, it would be 20 again. So this would be 905 and or 905.33, and it would just keep going. 3, 3, 3 forever. But you really only need to do the first 2 couple digits. So our answer is 905.33. That's how to divide with decimals if you want to go past and not use remainders, or you can use your calculator. If you divided 5,432 by 6, you would end up with 905 point, and then it would have 3s, a whole bunch of 3s. Let's try that with this problem here. Let's start by, let's put our little key over here. I like having that key here. It reminds me what I'm supposed to do. Alright, so I'm going to go here. Alright, we're going to start by dividing. 7 goes into 8 one time. 1 times 7 is 7. That's our second step. Third step is to subtract. Fourth step is to bring down. 7 goes into 14 2 times. 2 times 7 is 14. We subtract. We end up with 0. And then we bring down the 5. 7 doesn't go into 5, so we're going to put a 0 there. 0 times 5, or excuse me, 0 times 7 is 0. 5 minus 0 is 5. Now remember, we want to use a calculator, but we can do this without a calculator. We're going to add a decimal there. And we add a decimal there, and we can add some zeros. Okay. Then I have more numbers to bring down. This is 50. 7 goes into 50 7 times. 7 times 7 is 49. We subtract, and we're left with 1. We can bring down another 0, and we have a 10 now. Well, 7 goes into 10 one time. 1 times 7 is 7. We subtract, we end up with a 3. I could add another 0 here, and I could bring it down. And we have 30 there now. Well, 4 times 7 is 28. Bring this down here a little bit. We subtract, and we end up with a 2. Well, I could keep going. I could have another 0 there, and I could bring it down. And we'd have a 0 there. Well, 7 goes into 20. Make my roof longer. 2 times, because 3 times 7 is 21. So we do 2 times 7 is 14. And we subtract, we end up with a 6. Now we could keep doing this all day long probably. I don't know when this will end. But again, we only need the first couple. So we're going to make 120.71. If you put this in the calculator, it would be 120.7142, and there'd be a bunch of other numbers over here. All right, let's go ahead and go to F. It says divide mentally. So you can't do this in your head or on paper. You got to do it in your head. Well, I'm going to show you how I would do that. I would take 15 divided by 3. Well, I know that that's 3. 3 times 5 is 15. So it's going to be 3 with 2 zeros. That's it. That's how you can do that. So as long as they end in zeros like this here, you can, oh look, that's a smiley face. All right, let's go to the next one. 4 doesn't go into 2, but it will go into 20. So I'm going to go ahead and just look at the 20. 4 times 5 is 20, so I know that's going to be 5 with 2 zeros. There's your answer. It's that simple, all right? When we have 2 zeros. Or we have our numbers with zeros at the end. We'll make this one a smiley face too. And a nose. Okay, one more. This one says, find the missing factor in the equation 3m equals 1200. Well, we know that 3m equals 1200. We also know that m times 3 would equal 1200. And then if we did our division equivalence, it would be 1200 divided by m equals 3, or 1200 divided by 3 equals m. Well, this one here is the easy one to solve. You can do 1200 divided by 3. And you could do that mentally like we just talked about. Let's go back to the color. We could take those zeros off, and we know that 3 times 4 is 12, so 4 would go there. The 2 zeros. So our answer for m equals 400. And just for giggles, let's look at how to solve this the algebraic way. So we got 3m equals 1200. Now, we always, when we solve something like this, we want to get the m by itself. So we need to have m equals something. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by 3. So this side's 3. So because we know 3 divided by 3 is 1. And 1 times m is m, so m is now by itself. And then we could divide 1200 by 3, and that gives us 400. We got that over there. All right. So our answer is m equals 400. We can check our work. We can take 3 times m, which we now think is 400, and equals 1200. Is that right? It sure is. So we checked our work. All right. That's it for lesson 80. I hope you learned something. And just for fun, let's do one more smiley for you at the end of the lesson with some ears. Some ears. There you go. He's got to have a nose too. And a double chin. All right, you guys have fun.